Well, Americans are losing their trust in elections, and following a lackluster midterm result, the Republican Party is looking for leadership. Joining us now is a man who may just throw his hat in the ring for a 2024 presidential run is Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. Sir, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So I want to get your take because tomorrow we have that runoff race in Georgia. So important. We were talking about it earlier in the show between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. What are you expecting will happen?
Well, first of all, I'm delighted that Governor Brian Kemp is heavily engaged in that. I think he's going to make a real difference. I noted previously that former Congressman Jack Kingston, who I served with, is heavily engaged in this and gave a good summary of it. I'm pulling for Herschel, of course. Whenever you look back at the midterm elections, we didn't have all the success that we wanted as Republicans nationally. But we have to put this in perspective that there were certain candidates that did not appeal to independents and suburban voters, and they lost. But those that were problem solving, that really relied upon Republican principles, they won. And we had a red wave in Arkansas. There was a red wave in Iowa. And so there were successes around the country. And so any failure to win the Senate was not a rejection of Republican principles. And I think that's what we're fighting for in Georgia. It's really, are you going to be supporting the Biden liberal agenda, or are you going to be supporting Republican principles and trying to move our country in a different direction from border security to solving the challenge of violence in our society? And I think that's what's at stake, and I'm hopeful and optimistic that Herschel's going to pull that out.
Yeah, let's talk about that liberal agenda. You just mentioned the border. It's something that Republicans and Americans have called a crisis now for the last essentially almost 2 years. What do you make of the Biden administration basically just kind of brushing off this border crisis as we continue to see a record number of people dying from fentanyl overdoses? We're seeing crime increase. We're seeing people come from on the border who've been on the FBI most wanted list. What do you make of that?
Well, the Biden administration is trying to diminish it as an issue, and hopefully it gets better, but they're not changing their policy. They're not changing their messaging, and it's a human tragedy. These are migrants that are coming in. They're being smuggled in. The cartels are controlling the border, and it's costing human lives as well as undermining our rule of law in our country. And whenever I go across the country, and whether it's in the Northeast or whether it's in the Midwest or the South, they're talking about the fentanyl and how that's impacting their children, their families, and we have got to bring that under control. So it's going to take asylum reform. It's going to take an investment for our system to process those cases quickly. We're going to have to be able to remove people quickly when they don't qualify for the asylum. I was the head in charge of border security during the Bush administration. We didn't get it perfect by any means, but whenever you're looking at over 2 million coming in, that's just unacceptable, and we've got to do better as a nation, and there's ways to get that done.
How is that affecting folks in Arkansas, the border crisis?
Well, first of all, it impacts us because of the drugs that flow in and the crime that comes in. I can name a number of families that have lost sons and daughters because of fentanyl being laced with some other drug that the son or daughter was taking. And this is a human tragedy. And so there's a recognition that we have got to be able to stop that flow coming in. And you think back to the Republican leaders of the past, from Reagan to Bush, they recognized that interdiction of drugs was critically important and enlisting the support of our international allies. So that's where it's impacting Arkansas, but it also is just frustrating for a democracy, a sovereign country that we're very proud of, and that we have an immigrant history, but our immigrant population that come here lawfully is frustrated too.
Absolutely.
That they've waited in line so long that they're seeing cheaters get in unfairly.
Yeah, they follow the rules and others don't. I do want to ask you, because you've said in the media that you may consider throwing your hat in the ring for a 2024 presidential run. Want to know if that's something that you're considering now, and if you want to make an announcement here on Wake Up America for us.
Well, I love your program, and I hope to be providing clarity early next year on this. But absolutely, I'm considering that, as others are. And I think the message is on the Republican side that there's going to be options. We have one candidate in the race right now, former President Trump, who did many good things, but there is a need in our party and our country to have different leadership in the future. And so there's going to be a contest. There's going to be others that get in this. I'm going to be in the mix on that, because we want to be able to showcase what we can do as governors in solving problems, addressing inflation, get our energy production back in line, bring the experience that we have to stop violent crime in our country. So a lot to be done. And the message is very important, and so stay tuned for next year.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Governor Asa Hutchinson. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir.